Okay. So we already had a prayer and a spiritual thought, and Josh and Clayson and Madison already took turns explaining how they evaluated the company. What I did is I went to exhibits 3 and 4 and looked at the multiples used in the valuation of comparable companies. And then I found the averages of both of those exhibits. And then I found the averages of the combined exhibits. And that came out with a multiple of 3. And so using that and using the 2013 revenue run rate that the acquirer agreed to use in the valuation, that would be 3 times 50,000. I'd value the company at about $150 million. So that's what I did.
Okay.
That's another route that I was about to take, was taking those averages to see. So I think that's a good option as well. But I'm with Clayson as well, and seeing that the using those post money valuations from before. But I think as well they're trying to include future value with this, and since it did talk about that. I guess I'm kind of focusing on the offer from the buyer and not what I would value it at. So I kind of am getting a little sidetracked, but I think that somewhere between that, what like Clayson said, 60 and 100 million, potentially all the way up to 150 million, I could see that as well.
Yeah, I agree with that as well, in that range, because that doesn't seem too unrealistic or unreasonable, even getting up to the 150. It's definitely able to get there. So,
yeah. And Josh, you mentioned future values. One of the questions, not one of the group questions, but one of the personal questions we were supposed to answer was the value at the end of 2014. Mm-hmm. So using that same multiple of 3, I multiplied that by 60 million, which is the projected revenue for 2014. And that would yield like 180 million. And so I think we've got like a $100 million margin between what Clayson got and then that number for the end of 2014. Right. That's a pretty good ballpark estimate. Madison, did you have any additional thoughts on that?
Kind of going off of what you said, how in 2014 it'd be like 180 million. That kind of makes sense that it would progress from between like 60 and 90 million and progressing clear up to that in years to come. Just seeing how big the business can get, kind of estimating it is kind of cool. I've had a hard time doing like the whole number thing like Josh did, but it's helping to see what you guys have done. Be able to make it, make it make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Question 2, going off that, asks us to provide a range of values rather than a single number. And how did you come to this conclusion? So and I don't know if you guys did this, but another one of the questions asked what the venture capitalist investors were looking for in terms of valuation. Did either of you, any of you, work that out?
I didn't really.
I honestly haven't done the prep part yet. I read it, but I haven't done the write-up for it yet.
Yeah.
I guess just to throw some more numbers out there. Clayson, you referenced during the first IPO attempt, the company was valued, or I guess it wasn't an IPO attempt, but like the Series B round of investment. Then the company was valued at 129 million. And there was I don't know if it was in that section or a little bit later on in the case, it said that the venture capitalists wouldn't settle for less than 2 to 3 times the last round's post-money valuation. And so by that figure by 2 or 3. And so they'd probably be looking for anywhere between 258 million and 387 million, which is significantly more than what we valued the company at.
Would that be the post-money evaluation, or would that be like the pre-money evaluation?
They did say they wanted it off of that post-money valuation.
Yeah.
I believe was that what they were looking at.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the post-money valuations will be a little bit or significantly higher than the pre-money valuation.
Right.
But
yeah, so just from what the venture capitalists were looking for, it was 2 to 3 times the last round's post-money valuation. So Nathan, you are right on that money. At the high end of that, it'd be 387 million, which it sounds like this buyer knew and felt comfortable they could meet that expectation, which seems crazy.
Yeah,
Good amount of
that's
money.
that's a lot of money. I think there was a phrase in there that said that not even Warren Buffett would offer such favorable terms for any company.
Right.
That's saying something.
It is.
Moving on to the third question. If Greg's investors seek a 30 to 50% internal rate of return, what exit value would they expect? This is one that I wasn't super confident in. I just took that 50 million and multiplied it by 130% and 150% respectively. Look at my number. I don't know if that's correct.
That sounds correct to me, as you would just take the number that you would rate it at, what they would invest in it, and then multiply it by that. But I'm not certain which number,
Yeah.
like the pre amount or the amount that they think that they'll have in like 2014, or what number will be multiplying it off of is what I was confused with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that question either. I kind of just skipped over it because I wasn't sure how to calculate that internal rate of return. But from what you said, that seems close enough. You know, that seems realistic, and the 30% growth or whatever, 50% growth.
Yeah, it is hard to know because I think you have to know what they initially invested to know how much a specific dollar amount that they're looking for in return if Gianforte was to sell the company. And so I guess that would be a question that I'd have, is how much did they invest initially?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's really how you find that number, because I don't think we're basing it off of that that revenue value, that 50 million. I feel like it's based off of each investor's initial investment. Like they want a 30% of their initial investment or 50% of their initial investment, and not everybody had the same investment and everything. So each investor is going to be getting a different percentage. So that 50 million isn't necessarily the number to go off of, but it's the right idea that you would multiply that times whatever number they invested times that 30 to 50% of their investment.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Trying to see. Did any of the exhibits talk about what those investors initially put up? I haven't seen that anymore.
Not that I found.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Then I guess just to keep it simple, then I would say, yeah, based off of that 50 million, just basing it off of those numbers, then the 65 million to 100 million.
Yeah.
So with the fourth question, providing analysis of the options he's considering, deciding what he should do. I guess first we should outline what some of his goals are, as well as what the goals of the other members of his management team. And so, Madison, from reading the case, what would you say that Greg is looking for with this business?
Was he looking for, like, in the end run with it?
Yeah. What was his point in starting it up? Like, what would make most sense according to what he values?
It looks like he values, because it talks about at the beginning how he wasn't just like sitting at his desk waiting, but he values like getting out and working, just like working hard and putting it towards it. It's not just like earning a lot of money just because he wanted to earn a lot of money, because he worked hard and he wants that to show through what he can get the business to become. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think along those same lines, he sees a goal for the community that he lives in. It talked about how he wanted to provide jobs for the community there. He said he wanted to create 2,000 jobs, and they were 1,600 jobs short of that at this point. And I think that's something that is important to him. It's something like he's built this business. He could take the cash grab and go, but what's important for him is to build up the community he lives in and to provide provide work and things like that for the people that are there. And so I think that that's something that's most important to him is just not so much the money end, but what kind of an impact his business can have on the community that he lives in.
I agree with what everyone said there. I don't think he's in it for the money. He's been already successful once in his life. He has enough money to provide for his family. He just came back into the entrepreneurial industry just because he wanted to do something. He retired, but he wanted to come back and do something else. So I think he wants to make a bigger impact in the community, bigger impact in the world with this software that he has compared to, starting something up, turning it quick and making a good chunk of money. I think there's a deeper meaning in there than just taking the quickest offer. So
I completely agree. Of course, he made like 10 million off of selling Brightworks, which is a huge amount of money. I don't know how anyone could spend that in a lifetime. He's focused on creating jobs. In addition, with the software that he created, it says that he has a relentless focus on customer satisfaction and selling. So, of course, the first employees he hired were like 6 sales reps. And so he really wants to deliver a quality product and a quality service and experience for the customers. And so, like you guys said, I don't think he cares nearly as much about the money. Of course, it's not just about what he thinks. He's got a couple other team members. You've got Karstensen, who's over finance, and you've got Peter Dunning, who's over engineering, and you have Forbes, who's over kind of company vision. So what do you guys think are the goals and the aims of these other members of the management team?
It talks about in option 2A, reject the acquisition and plan for an IPO. It says some members of the management team bristle at the idea of accepting the embrace the enemy. Talking about going IPO. I think they've already tried that option before, and I think they don't really want to dive back into it so soon.
But I think that they also see the value that the company has potential to become, and eventually getting into the IPO is something that they are interested in. Yeah, they kind of had that failed experiment early on, but it was more to do with the stock market crash and things like that. And so they know what kind of value they're offering. They can see, especially when they see what happens with Salesforce when that finally goes public, and they can kind of get see what a similar company to theirs, how it does in the IPO market. I think that they do see the great value in moving forward and building the company and planning for an IPO sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think that Karstensen thinks right along those lines. After the first IPO attempt, I think she had some commentary in the case, and she said that the problem was one, the business cycle was very negative, didn't allow RightNow Technologies to get that foothold as an IPO, and that second, they were too small. But now that the company has like 4 or 5 times the total yearly revenue that they did back in 2001, they're in a great position to enter that market. Of course, it's kind of hard to say what Dunning says. The case doesn't offer a whole lot of commentary about his opinions. Forbes, to me, seems like a very, very competitive, very ambitious guy. Of course, he was kind of hesitant to take the job, but he did take the job, even though a bunch of others had failed before him at RightNow Technologies. And then he came up with this like 125-page document about how they're gonna attack the market, how they're gonna capture market share and become the leader. And so, to me, he seems like one who's kind of in it for the money, for the fame and the glory.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that he puts in a lot of work because of the expectation of a big reward in the end, I feel like. But like you said, there's not a lot of information on his true motivations. But I think for him, in a money standpoint, something that needs to be considered, or probably he is considering, is that an IPO could be very successful at this point, rather than just taking this offer, because he's not one of the investors, so he's not going to be getting a lot back from just this cash, or I guess stock offer from this other company. So sorry, I'm really distracted holding her and trying to talk about all this too. But yeah, I agree with you in the sense that he's looking for that money as well.
Yeah, I picture that being difficult, having everybody kind of have a different goal in mind. Having Greg's more in it for helping others, and some of them are more in it for the money and for that kind of stuff. It would be hard to be like, okay, what next? What do I want to do that's going to make me happy, but also help everybody else that's working with me to be happy and feel like this was a good choice and successful.
Yeah. It's kind of going back to what you said, Josh, about making the profits. So on page 9, talking about accepting the offer, says Forbes is looking for wealth creation, create potential value in the market. It goes on to say that there's one 9-digit, so that would be for Gianforte, and multiple other 8-digit personal wealth creation events at stake. Is that referring to selling the company right now, or is that related to an IPO? So I'd imagine usually when there's an acquisition, you make quite a bit of money. But at the same time, I think the way that Forbes sees it is that you can make even more money if you held out for an IPO later on.
Yes, that's true. And I think also with this offer, they are not actually offering cash. They're offering shares in the company that's acquiring them. So yeah, you could get shares and then sell them right away and just kind of walk away. But Gianforte he would go with the company and stay and work together with the acquiring company to continue its growth. Whereas some of these other people that are involved may not stick around. And so I don't know how many shares they would be getting, and so how much they would be able to walk away with. Whereas when it's referring to, I think the 9-figure and 8-figure that you were talking about, I think that's referring to, if he sold this company now, they would be losing out on that, and not be eligible for that anymore, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah, reading it, to me, it almost sounds like the opposite, saying either sell it now and get, we're talking like millions, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or, bank on an IPO later and maybe making even greater profits. You talked about the acquiring company offering shares. I'm not sure what all is going into the terms. It is an all stock offer, and from what I read, it sounds like they would buy up all of the shares from the investors and the owners of RightNow Technologies, and so in essence, they'd have complete control over the company. So I feel like that would be something that Gianforte would be against, because he's owned 60% of the company up until this point, which is pretty significant, with a 6-year history. So I feel like that would be something that he would be against, is somebody coming in and taking over everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. If that were the case, which it's kind of fuzzy, just like you were mentioning, but I think he still wants a good portion of the company, and I think there's still room for growth and a lot more expansion. And that's why, for me, I went with option 3, which was to reject the acquisition and continue to grow organically. That way, Greg can get the company where he needs to be, continue to grow it, and then ultimately, in a couple years down the road, whether you go with the IPO or whether you go with another accusation, you can go from there. But I think for right now, I think it's still pretty early on, and that Greg wouldn't want to cough up his ownership there, and I think he'd still want to make an influence in the company and in the community that he's in.
Yeah, I agree with you, Clayson. That's which one I chose, was like putting aside those thoughts and giving it a few more years to grow, and then decide later, okay, what do I want to do? The IPO? Do I want to, by giving it more time since it's progressing so well and even is projected to earn a lot of money in the future, might as well just keep going with it, and then in a few years, maybe when it plateaus, decide, okay, what next? What do I want to do?
And another testament to that too is that this acquiring company is willing to pay so much. They see the value, they recognize this is a competition, and if we don't act now, then they could potentially be taking our market. And so that in and of itself should be a factor in what the decision is, because they could look at it and go, look, we're making an impact because we're getting noticed by these other companies that are now trying to acquire us because they see our value and what we offer. So I think that I agree with what y'all both said, that I would also wait and grow organically.
Cool. I'm glad we disagree. I love when we can do so. So I went with the second option with a slight twist. So I think that they should shoot for an IPO next year, unless their main competitor, Salesforce.com's IPO fails miserably. So they mentioned in the case that they were going to wait and see what happened with Salesforce.com. And so they'll have a year to watch that. And if it's not good, then they can easily pull out. The reason why I'd go with an IPO next year is to solve the problem of visibility. And visibility was recognized as one of RightNow's biggest problems. Forbes made a couple comments. He says, as a public company, we'll get more coverage. Customers can see our balance sheet and feel confident about our stability. Talked about how you had like all the news media focused on public companies because they had access to their records, whereas they didn't look at private companies at all. And so becoming an IPO, you get a lot more attention from potential investors. You get a lot more attention from potential employees, from the media, and so that's going to attract a lot more customers. Of course, in addition to Salesforce.com, they've got some other pretty serious contestants in the public sphere that could very well drown out RightNow Technologies. I think there was one company in particular that is bringing in 40 times the revenue that RightNow is bringing in, which is huge. And so when you have a couple really big guys like that, it makes it really difficult to even compete. I think becoming an IPO, becoming a public company is going to give them a lot more visibility, a lot more credibility. They'll be able to fight more effectively against the big guys. Here's some of your criticism.
I don't disagree with that. The one thing that I would say that is a criticism, I guess, to the thought of going next year and seeing how, depending on how Salesforce goes, is we've learned it a little bit in this case, but in other cases as well, the IPO process takes a long time. And so if they wanted to get started and get ready to do it next year, they basically have to start now, which doesn't even give them a lot of ability to see how Salesforce does until after they've already put in a lot of paperwork. Then if Salesforce crashes and they go decide, okay, maybe we shouldn't go public, that hurts their valuation if they withdraw their IPO. And that would be a second time that they withdraw their IPO as a company. And so I can see the value of wanting to go with the IPO, but there is that risk if they decide Salesforce didn't do so hot, maybe we shouldn't go public, then they're losing out on the valuation because of that second withdrawal.
That makes sense. So maybe it would be kind of a combo of both the options. Maybe not to do an IPO within a year, maybe within like 2 years or 3 years,
right?
Kind of like Clayton was saying.
Wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think even that too, if they wait like a little bit, I'm sure other companies will come in and start offering them offers. Because I don't know if this is the first of the offers, but it's probably definitely not the last. Especially if the company keeps growing like it is and the potential it has, it's definitely able to receive some more offers in the future.
Right.
Madison, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
I don't know. I can't think of too much to add. Kind of like you guys said, I like the compromise idea where put it off, but you still consider the IPO idea for in a few years since it does take a while anyways. Like give it yourself time, like giving them time as well so then they don't have to take it out again and be like, okay, never mind. So they can give it time to make sure that that idea and that attempt will go well before just deciding to do it and having it fail again.
Right.
So it's a good idea to compromise.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the options, pros and cons? Anything else you found interesting in the case?
I wonder what his decision was. That's all.
No.
And I'm always curious about that.
I think that's what I'm going to start doing at the end of these cases. Just look up the information on it and see what they did.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of interesting.
Good deal.
Josh, is that your baby?
It is, yeah.
She is so cute.
My daughter. Thank you.
Do you have any other kids or just her?
No, this is our first and only right now. Yeah.
Well, Clayson, you got to look forward to that.
Oh, yeah. I got one on the way coming in June.
Oh,
Little
that's
baby
awesome.
boy. So,
That's awesome. Congratulations.
thanks, man. We're excited.
She seems like such a good baby.
Yeah, she is most of the time.
Doesn't keep you up too late in the nights.
No, not really. She's good.
That's good then.
How old is she?
13 months.
Oh, wow. That's so fun.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. She keeps us busy, but she's fun.
That's fun. Sorry, that was off topic. I was just curious.
That's okay.
No, you're good. I just looked it up. So it looks like that they did an IPO in 2004 and then ended up selling to Oracle in 2011. That's interesting because that would be right along the lines of what we were saying.
Okay.
Wait, so they did the IPO in 2004 or 2011? Which one was it?
IPO in 2004 and then sold it in
Okay.
2011.
Okay. That makes
So,
sense. That
yeah,
would be
they
a smart
did.
option for them.
Yeah.
IPO in a year. And
Yeah.
then sell it in a couple years after he's done with it, made enough money. He's like, I'm done. I'm going to go retire again.
Yeah. Guy's worth millions.
I bet, man. And he's only, Bozeman, Montana is only like 2 hours away from Rexburg. Or 2-3 hours away.
Oh, wow.
So if
That's
we want to
pretty
go on a trip, we can go see him.
okay. Whenever you guys are available.
Do some networking.
Absolutely.
I want to get into the software industry.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you guys for your time today. I guess.
Thank you. I'm glad we got it to work.
Yeah. I guess we won't see each other till like next Wednesday because we've got an assignment that we just do on our own, analyzing
Right.
Paper.
right up.
Yeah, and so since I've got the link here, I will I'll send this to y'all as soon as we finish up to be able to get that into the post discussion poll and all that stuff.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think-
Thank you.
If we're rotating, it's probably my turn next week to run the meeting. So on Wednesday, if y'all want to just plan on that, I'll send out the link and everything and run the meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
See you later.
Thanks. Bye.